Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Sparks from Ashes, Lent and Ash Wednesday as Moments of Evangelization. I'm Jay Schaefer, the Production Coordinator for the Catholic Apostolate Center, and I'll be your host this evening as we welcome our guest speaker, Paul Jarzembowski. Paul is the Assistant Director for Youth and Young Adult Ministries at the USCCB Secretariat of Laity, Marriage, Family Life, and Youth, and we're very pleased to have him speaking with us this evening. If you have any technical issues, please send me a message in the chat box and I'll help you out with whatever the problem is. And at this point now, I will turn it over to Paul and leave you in his capable hands.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be with you this evening. To all those who are listening, I'm glad you were able to join us for this webinar. As you know, Ash Wednesday is coming up very soon in 2016, February 10th. So it's only a few more weeks away. So we're going to dive right in. This webinar is going to be really outlined in three parts. The first is looking at the phenomenon of Ash Wednesday and Lent. Why do people come? The second part is looking at what can we do immediately in the short term? What can we do for Ash Wednesday and Lent this year and any year? And then finally, we'll wrap it up by looking at more long-term and systematic at the lessons we can learn as a church, especially in this year of mercy. Now, the Ash Wednesday and Lenten phenomenon is a very unique thing. Chances are you probably already know about this phenomenon. You've probably witnessed it and experienced it yourself. You probably have seen more people coming on Ash Wednesday. But let's really look at this and see what affirms your experiences you already have. So let's start with a baseline. What you see in front of you is an outline of who comes on a regular basis to Mass. Look at the yellow boxes at the top. You'll notice these are the regular attendees that come weekly to Mass. So you see from the different generations, if you look at pre-Vatican II, which are those people who are in their 70s and 80s, Vatican II would be those who are currently in their mid-50s up through their 70s. The post-Vatican II are those ages about 35 to 55 right now. They're also known as Gen Xers. And the millennial generation are those ages between 18 and 35, what we would call young adults today. And you see across the generations that on the average, about 23% go weekly to Mass. But if you break it down by the generations, you see that for the older demographic, you got 45% who are going on a regular basis. But as we get closer to those who are in their young adult years, you see that it's around 15 or 17%. So that's our baseline, just so you have this as a sense of who is coming on a regular basis to church. Now, let's look at Lent. And the same groups. Just take a look at this. You see a remarkable difference. And I've put the number of the regular attendees on the bottom of the screen so you get a sense to compare these numbers to. So if you look, for instance, at those who let's look at the post-Vatican II and millennials, because that's where we see the biggest significant changes. You look at the question they asked about, do you abstain from meat on Fridays? You see that, about 60% of young adults and Gen Xers are participating from abstaining on meat on Fridays, whereas only 15 or 17% of them come to Mass regularly. Do you go to Mass for Ash Wednesday, receive ashes? You notice also that there's a significant uptick. What's the third row there is actually really significant because you see as each generation goes further, actually more people are participating the younger they are if they're giving up anything for Lent. You see that's a common practice amongst younger people that may not be as much practiced among the older demographics. So these numbers are statistically very inspiring for us, very interesting for us, and it's one of the reasons why we're gathered here today to really talk about to talk about this phenomenon. Another way to look at this is a strata of each of the 52 weeks a year. And you see somewhat of an uptick in 3 areas. A little bit difficult to read, but I'll share with you the 3 biggest upticks in regular attendance at Mass is in the far right at Christmas. That should come as no surprise. On the left side, you see Easter at 52%. And then Ash Wednesday comes in at number 3, the 3rd most participatory time of the year. And just to give you a sense as to what this chart is all about, people often ask what that box is around October. And that is when we take regular counts for Mass. This is when we do the annual census in many dioceses. It's called an October count. So that's all that really represents. But what's really significant is that Christmas, Easter, and Ash Wednesday are the 3 times of year when attendance soars like never before. And what is even more distinct about that is that Christmas and Easter are often holidays that involve family attendance. One goes to Mass with their mother, their father, their families, their children. But on Ash Wednesday, that's often a time of year that you go to Mass on your own. That's a time of year when you wouldn't go with family. No one has family outings to Ash Wednesday quite the same as they have for Christmas and Easter. So we see a number of people who are single, who are not with families, coming to Ash Wednesday on their own. So that makes it even more compelling, because with the other times of year, one could argue that there's a sense of family pressure that comes in with Christmas and Easter. But on Ash Wednesday, it seems that this is very much fueled by a very individual desire to go. So it causes us to raise our eyebrows and go, what's distinct? What's unique about Ash Wednesday? So I want to take a moment and ask this question of you. As I said, many of you probably, this affirms some experiences you've had. And I would ask you, if you would like to, if you have a thought, either in the chat, you can let us know, why do you think they come? What's your theory? What do you feel compels them to go, especially those who are less active in the practice of their faith? So if you'd like in the chat, please share, and I'll read some of the comments as they come up. So give us your best theories, your best thoughts. So the first one that Joe had mentioned is it's something about the idea of a shared experience, that Ash Wednesday is indeed something that is very shared. Everyone is getting their ashes that day, and it's a physical sign of faith, yeah. Yeah, and if anybody wants to actually verbally say something, you can certainly hit the unmute button on the red button on your thing, and feel free to share your thoughts. I like this. Catholic guilt from mom. Yeah, that's certainly something that might be a possibility. Well, I'd like to share with you a few things that we've heard from others around, and see if maybe some of these reasons might be something that you've heard of. Some things we've heard: tradition. When you grow up Catholic, teaching, it's easy to teach penance to children, and so it's something that people easily remember. It's also something that people are drawn to rituals. They're drawn to the experience of those traditions that they grew up with. You have expectations. You know, Ash Wednesday comes every year. In fact, what's nice about it is we have a very secular holiday, Mardi Gras, that precedes it each year. So it's easy to remember that, because you just remember when Mardi Gras is, and it's the next day. But it's part of the annual to-do list for many Catholics. Even culturally in the United States, you start seeing commercials for the Filet-O-Fish at McDonald's or fish fries down the street. So it's part of our cultural tradition to start talking about that. You may even start noticing that you'll be getting clam chowder on Fridays for soup at your local restaurant. For tinkering, many young adults, especially Gen Xers and millennials, like to try out new spiritual practices, so they tinker with their faith. Look at another one here, wintertime and feeling lonely. Wintertime is a time of winter doldrums, so some think that Ash Wednesday is kind of an opportunity to feel a sense of community again, to find a sense of purpose, and that is something that Lent and Ash Wednesday definitely have. I think somebody said feeling guilty. That's definitely in there for not going to church. But there's also on the other side the need for mercy. Lent is a time where we encourage people to come if they feel a sense of that they need forgiveness, that they've done something wrong in their life. And so Ash Wednesday and Lent is the time of year where we say, it's okay. Come to church. You're welcome. Sinners are certainly welcome during Lent, and so I think people are very much drawn to that. It's the notion of quick and easy. Civically, you could say, yeah, Ash Wednesday is something that you can pop in and out of. I know that there are churches who actually just simply have services where you just simply come for 5 minutes, get a prayer, receive your ash, and leave. That's very quick and easy. But the fact is, it's a moment of return. They're momentary experiences of faith, a little bit low commitment, but it's something that is tangible, something that can be done. And people are often drawn to something, a challenge, 40 days to do something. People are very much drawn to that. But also it reminds us that there are certain moments that people feel slightly more drawn to the faith. Christmas and Easter, we've talked about Ash Wednesday, but also weddings and funerals and times of grief are times that people momentarily come. And so Ash Wednesday is certainly one of that. I put on there Lenten FOMO, the fear of missing out. You see on Ash Wednesday people maybe at your workplace and on your campus, people walking around your neighborhood with ashes on their head, and well, you just don't want to miss out on that. Everyone else is doing it. It's also a time to renew oneself. Lent is kind of like perfectly positioned at a time when people who have New Year's resolutions may have dropped them after a few weeks. So maybe try those Lenten resolutions, or try your New Year's resolutions again in Lent. And then this time, of course, you have God on your side, so perhaps it might work. There are people who are curious about faith, about God, and Lent is a time to kind of learn a little bit more. It's almost like a 40-day course on spirituality. Refuge and rest. I want to really focus in on this one. This is something that I think we don't often think about. We often get somewhat cynical with people when they come back, but so many people today are very overworked. Studies show that people have multiple jobs. They feel so much noise and anxiety in their life. There's a lot of pressure from the media, pressure from their work, pressure from others. And so they're seeking silence. They're seeking peace. And Lent and Ash Wednesday, for some odd reason, really appeal to people as times of silence and peace. And so it is a time when people do return, feeling that it is a place of refuge and rest. I wonder if it speaks to what Pope Francis was speaking when he talked about the church being a field hospital after battle. People are in battle throughout their lives. They're feeling battered down by so many things. So perhaps in Lent, they see the church as a place, a field hospital where they can tend to their wounds, get rested up, and go out back into the world. Lent is also very spiritual. We talk a lot about people who are spiritual, not religious, but Lent is a very spiritual time. So those who connect with spirituality maybe more than religiosity are attracted to the season of Lent. And finally, Lent, we've often heard, is a time when people focus a little bit more on Jesus. The season of Lent, in a way, is like the story of Christ's life. You begin with the first readings in Lent often talk about the temptation of Jesus, and we move through his life unto the passion, death, and resurrection. So the church is really focused on the life of Christ, and many people today feel that connection to Christ, perhaps even more than their own religious community. So the focus on Jesus is certainly a draw. Do some of these reasons affirm things you may have thought? Do any of them surprise you? If you'd like to offer any thoughts or comments, I ask you if you'd like to affirm something you read. Maybe you have a question on some of these reasons. In a way, there's not enough space for all the reasons why people do come back. But I wanted to show you that it's not just one thing, but it's many, and it depends on the thing. But I want to ask if people have any thoughts or insights. Joe asked a question, why do you think people fear missing out? Well, I'm guessing with the FOMO there that you're talking about, you know, as someone said before, when you receive ashes, it's a tangible sign. You get something, there's some sort of mark that you're making. And if other people are making the mark, why haven't I? Why haven't I made that resolution? I know that guy down the hall, he may not be as active in his faith as I thought, but he's got ashes. And so he's making a promise. I think I can do that too. So you get a little bit of what people used to call peer pressure, but you also might just get simply people wanting to make sure that they haven't missed out on this opportunity. We look on Facebook today, it's probably very prevalent when people maybe put for their picture, their status update, something that everything else, maybe they're coloring their picture a certain way, or they've got a certain logo. Everybody wants to kind of be seen as part of that connection. And so Ash Wednesday is a spiritual way of doing that as well. Other questions or other things that affirmed or maybe challenged what you thought about Ash Wednesday and the reasons they come? Yeah, some people do think it's an extra holy day. Yeah, there's holy days of obligation, and I'd like to, as we go on, I'd like to talk about this as a holy day of opportunity for us. No, it's not officially a holy day, but, well, don't tell anybody yet, because I think it's the best kept secret we've got. If they want to see it as such, so be it. So, moving forward, though, it's great to know why, but now I'd like to look at the question, what can we do? What can we practically do for Lent and Ash Wednesday that can move this forward? So there's three things that I think we can do, and I'm going to go into these in a second. But you kind of see there's before, during, and after Ash Wednesday. Before Ash Wednesday, the pre-Lent prep, this is what we can do. Ash Wednesday itself, we can do things, and then we can do things in Lent. And make Lent not just Lent for the spiritual or the religious, but Lent for the curious, Lent for the overwhelmed, and to make a Lent for those in need of mercy. So let me go into detail what I mean here. So pre-Lent preparation. You know, there was a tradition in the old church of a season called Septuagesima. Now, Septuagesima meant 70 days before Easter. People would often begin their Lenten preparation even before Ash Wednesday. In the old church, the monks and the religious would begin their fasting 30 days prior to everybody else to get themselves ready to be ministers during the Lenten season. And Septuagesima was a season that we would often celebrate, or not sort of celebrate, but commemorate. I wonder if we can look at this again. What if those who are active and involved 30 days before Lent, maybe more, maybe less, but if they themselves got prepared for the return of all these inactive people who are going to be returning during Lent and Ash Wednesday? What if we trained people in our pews on evangelization techniques, welcoming techniques during the Lenten season, during Ash Wednesday? What if we prepared people to be more merciful before Lent? so that when they come on Ash Wednesday, there isn't the sneers, there isn't the ignoring them, there isn't any of that, but we prepare the active people ahead of time. Another thing is be intentional about Ash Wednesday and Lenten planning. So often we in church are so busy before Lent that we really put together Ash Wednesday experiences that are just like any other day of the year. But Ash Wednesday is a special time of year because of so many people coming. So we need to be a little bit more intentional about how we plan for those liturgies. And I'll get in a moment here what I talk about the Ash Wednesday experience, but be intentional about the planning. Take time out to plan. Take time out to plan Lent, and do it intentionally. And do it with the thought of those people who are coming to church. Think of them in the planning. Another way of pre-Lent preparation is accompaniment. And what I mean by this is that there are probably people in our families, our friends, the communities, who maybe don't go. What if we were to invite them, accompany them to Ash Wednesday, accompany them to something and plan to accompany them there? So part of this pre-Lent preparation is beginning walking with people in our own lives who may not be as attached to the faith, and begin the invitation process. Don't just say on Mardi Gras, hey, by the way, what are you doing tomorrow? Let's go. But rather, begin that dialogue, begin that conversation of faith with people who may be hurt, who may be distant, who may need a little bit of mercy or love or even refuge in their life. So accompanying them is important. Now on Ash Wednesday itself, in terms of that, this is where the planning pays off. You have liturgical aspects that we need to be paying attention to. For those who give homilies on Ash Wednesday, this is the time to make it the most compassionate, loving, and responsive homily one can make. The liturgy should be one of great care. It doesn't have to be a rock concert, but it certainly shouldn't be dour and depressing either. Even though it is a very solemn time of year, make it meaningful. Make those liturgical aspects very meaningful for the people who will be there. Hospitality is important. We often think about hospitality in maybe Easter time or the summertime, but hospitality is something that we can do on Ash Wednesday. You don't have to tell everybody who walks in the door, hey, happy Ash Wednesday, good to see you. But it is certainly good to invite people in, to be a welcoming face at the door when people come in, and to address them by name. One of the reasons many people detach from the practice of the faith is because they come in, they leave, and no one ever noticed they were there. If one other person noticed that a person was there, thanked them for being there, it might go a long way, because this might be the one time of year that they themselves are walking into the church. Hospitality goes a long way, especially on Ash Wednesday. Another thing on Ash Wednesday one might consider doing is having special gatherings after the liturgies. Perhaps a soup supper, perhaps a talk, perhaps just a social gathering. Something that would gather people together after the liturgy experience for more community, for more. Some people won't take you up on that, some will. And the fourth thing is an invitation to more. Now first, there is some Lent things that you want to invite people to. Lent is a great season to say, well, now that you've experienced this, now that you're here, we're glad you're here. We would invite you to come for more. If why they're coming to Ash Wednesday is for renewal, stress the renewal. If the reason they're coming is rest, stress the restful points in Lent for your community. But even a very practical thing you can do on Ash Wednesday is perhaps having just a simple booklet in the pews, maybe a flyer or a page in each pew that explains why we do what we do on Ash Wednesday, why we do what we do in Lent, something simply to welcome them then, and then maybe have a list of things that if they would like to challenge themselves with in the parish, they certainly can do. So sometimes simply just having a piece of paper in the pews that explains some of the things that we don't have time to say or give announcements of can go a long way. But again, it's paying attention to Ash Wednesday, being intentional. It's a holy day of opportunity for us to show mercy, to show love, to show compassion and to show our evangelistic spirit to those who may be visiting us for the first time all year. And then what we do for Lent. There's a variety of things one can do for Lent. I listed a few here. The first is kind of a fun one that I like to think, because people are so time-starved, but also they're so technologically connected, is to encourage, perhaps in the parish or in the community, a social media Lent. Now, what I mean by that is encourage people not just to fast from Facebook or Twitter, but to fast from being surface-oriented on Facebook, fast from being bitter on social media, fast from posting things that have no meaningful content on Facebook, fast from those things, and to increase the amount of compassion, the amount of very good, deep-rooted spiritual things that they post during Lent. So make their Lent on social media a meaningful Lent. That's one way you can do it. Another thing I said is, because people come in Ash Wednesday and Lent because they are seeking refuge, because they are seeking rest, consider what kind of support networks can be developed throughout Lent. And I'm not talking about 12-step groups, although if that's the need, that's the need. But support networks for those who are struggling in their career, struggling in their relationship, struggling with health issues, struggling with all manner of things in their life. Especially young people today are beaten down quite a bit. So having support networks in Lent are a great way to use that season and to find other people. Another thing is, people are looking for spirituality in Lent. So having spiritual direction available in the community, making that known how you do that, what does that all about? People may not even know what that is. So making that an opportunity for your community is key. And then offering retreats. People are looking for the silent. Give them a retreat, but don't give them the retreat where, there's all this stuff and all these different things you have to do overnight, 5 days. A busy person's retreat, an online retreat are other options if people are like, I don't have time for that. Find things that will reach to the people where they're at. And then finally, don't shy away from Lenten traditions. The regularity of Fridays is key. You saw the numbers that there's a number of people who fast on Fridays. There's this notion of calling back to ritual. People in today's society do like that ritual experience, those rites. So Stations of the Cross, Friday fish fries, on Holy Thursday, visiting several churches throughout the night. Those Lenten traditions that perhaps are culturally or just from your past could be a great way to share with people who may have that yearning for a sense of regularity, a sense of ritual in their Lenten experience. So offering those as well, and maybe offering them with a little bit of a social opportunity as well. For instance, have Stations of the Cross and then go out for dinner afterwards as a community. So that it's not just come to the church, do the ritual and leave, but come to the church, do the ritual, and then meet other people, have that community. And those who don't want it will leave. Those who do will have an opportunity to reconnect. So these are all ways to make Lent a little bit more intentional for those who may be normally detached from the practice of the faith. So I want to pause for one moment here just to ask if anyone else has ideas for Lent. We're going to get in a moment, we're going to get into the third and final section, which is what we can learn overall as a church. But I'm wondering if there are other ideas that perhaps people have tried, perhaps there's things that people have thought of or this inspired you in these three areas. So again, before, during, and throughout the season of Lent, I'm just curious if people have ideas or have insights or questions on the things that I just shared. Is there maybe any of these ideas that you might consider doing this Lent? And if so, how would you do it? Yes, Jay says that the Magnificat companion is very helpful. It is. The nice thing about the guides like Magnificat is that they give you a sense of routine. You can read the daily readings and things like that. There's a couple of different groups out there that are trying different things in very simple ways. I know that prayasugo.com is a website. I believe there's a mobile app that Pilate has, that the Palatines have, that can help you with that as well. And there's a 3-minute retreat in there as well. You know, those are good. Those are things that are digital. I know that the University of Notre Dame is doing a 3 devotion series for their students this Lent, trying to get people to just do the simple things. Maybe pray the Angelus every day, fast on Friday, and do 1 corporal or spiritual work of mercy. So these are just little things that can help be tangible, be simple. Somebody here likes the idea of social media, especially the catechumens. Yeah, people are always connected. People are always connected on their phones or their mobile devices. And that doesn't mean that that's the absence of spirituality. In fact, there's so much spiritual content available. I know that the Catholic Apostolate Center has a social media crash course to kind of help you with ways to connect with social media. What is the good content online? What is the good content in the digital sphere that can be used? Make that about Lent. So whenever I hear people sometimes saying, well, I'm just going to give up social media completely, I'm just going to unplug for Lent. I mean, if that's their choice, that's great. But I think there's other ways to engage with social media rather than just abandoning it altogether in Lent, because it's a great opportunity for community. It's a great idea for spiritual growth, and it's a great idea for evangelization. So what can we learn? What is the big picture here? Where are we, moving on from this? What are the things that Ash Wednesday and Lent teach us about being a church? I think that this season does more than just teach us how to do good Lent. This season, and the reason why people come, teaches how to be good church, and especially in the Jubilee of Mercy. So I have a few things that just might be of to consider as we go forward. The first is Ash Wednesday and Lent teaches us as a church to evangelize, to encounter, and to accompany. Because this is a time of year when people are in need of evangelization, when people are in need of that encounter, and when people need accompaniment. They need someone to walk with them. And not everybody is on the same place on their spiritual journey. Lent teaches us that. Some people come on Ash Wednesday. Some people come in Lent fully spiritual. They've got all this stuff. They've got all their spiritual tools. They have their Bible in hand. They're ready to go. Other people are just trying this again for the first time after 10, 15, 20 years of their life. So there's a variety of spiritual paths that people are on, and a variety of places that people are on in that journey. And so Lent and Ash Wednesday teaches us how to accompany people, because we have a great opportunity to do that in Lent. And then we know that these people don't disappear. It's not like after Easter, people stop having some of these struggles. People stop having the need to reconnect. The people don't have a need for mercy anymore. No, in fact, there's always that. So Lent and Ash Wednesday teach us more about how to do this as a church, and that we need to do this more as a church every day. It also teaches us to be ready for the moments of return. Ash Wednesday and Lent are 2 of those times, but Christmas and Easter, we said, are others. And there's also those times when people come back because of weddings or funerals, or because of times of grief. In cultural communities, Our Lady of Guadalupe is an incredibly strong moment of return. Perhaps one of the Marian feasts. I know that in many Polish households, the various Marian feasts, the Assumption, the Annunciation, those are feasts that a lot of people culturally have connected with. What are those moments of return, and when do we see people coming back? We just need to be conscious of that. I think we sometimes assume that everybody who comes to church has been going to church all the time, but every now and then people return. People come in momentary times to reconnect with church, and so we as a church need to be ready for that. We need to be ready to be always hoping that somebody is there for the first time and that we have a chance to welcome them. The third thing I think we can learn is that because Ash Wednesday and Lent are times when people's needs are really put out there, people bring to the church their frustrations, their anger, their anxieties, and it gives us an opportunity in Lent to focus on that. So often as a church we think, oh, what's the program that I should do? And even with people's needs, we can be very programmatic in trying to respond. But messy, good church is about focusing on people's needs, focusing on what is the things that they yearn for, what are the things that they're struggling with. If we did church focused on people's needs, not on programs, how many people would say, yeah, that's not for me? No, because you're focused on their needs. So it just helps us as a church to be sensitive to that and not just put out what the latest program in a box might be. What other things can we learn? Because Lent and Ash Wednesday is a very spiritual time of year, it reminds us that we can be religious and spiritual. I think it also teaches us to be a little bit more merciful when it comes to speaking to people who say they're spiritual but not religious. What I always say to people is, fantastic. I'm glad you're spiritual. I'm spiritual too. My spirituality comes through my religious experience, but how does yours come about? And explore with people that. But it also teaches us to lead with Jesus. Again, the fact that Jesus is so emphasized in the season of Lent should teach us that Jesus is an excellent way to lead with. We lead with him, we lead with that opportunity to share the story of Christ. People are drawn to him. They may not necessarily be drawn to the practice of the faith, but they are drawn to Christ. Christ is popular. And so lead with him, be spiritual, offer more spiritual programming. And then this humility and merciful and listening. I think sometimes we as a church talk a lot. We talk at people. Lent is a time where we listen. Reconciliation is a time where we listen. We are humble, we are merciful. We even admit we as church leaders struggle as well. We've sinned. These are things that are great lessons in the season of Lent, and they can help us throughout the rest of the year. That posture of humility, mercy, and a listening heart are all things that do us well in Lent and why people are attracted to us. Imagine if we did that in Easter, in ordinary time, at Christmas. So it teaches us to have an Ash Wednesday, a Lenten heart all year round. From the big picture, what else do you think we could learn from Ash Wednesday and Lent? I just want to open this time to ask you if you have any thoughts. What else have you learned by encountering these people, that whole swath of people who are coming for all these different reasons? What else can we learn? Simply being welcome to those who come is important. Yes, welcoming them, treating the person who comes on Ash Wednesday or Lent or any time, that they are first and foremost the most important person to walk into the room. You ever had a conversation with one of those people who, as soon as you talked to them, you felt that you were the only person there. You're the only person that mattered. Imagine if someone who walks in the church felt that when they walk in, they were the only one that mattered. Imagine that feeling that they are that important. And that is, I think, a key lesson. We can do this so well on Ash Wednesday and Lent because people are looking for that. And we can do this all year round. So being welcome. Yeah, sometimes that welcoming spirit cracks the door open. I think, I'm not saying that, we have to always just listen and completely give all the time to people who are new. But just a little bit of that goes so much of a long way. Imagine what people will say, I went to church for the first time in 3 years last week at Ash Wednesday. I think I'm going to try that again. In some respects, Pope Francis, I think one of the reasons why he is so successful is he is if I could be kind of casual about it, he's like a pontifical Ash Wednesday. Pope Francis is always welcoming. Pope Francis is always reaching out to people who are in need. And that is the crack that opens up that people can walk through and feel closer to the faith. So Pope Francis is really doing a lot of this already. He has the spirit of Lent within him in a very positive, joyous way. So, when we as church leaders sometimes look at the season of Lent as kind of a down, depressing time of year, I would challenge you to look at it as an exciting time of year. Think about the reading that we read. The first reading every year on Ash Wednesday is the reading from the prophet Joel. And listen to that reading this Ash Wednesday, because you'll hear the prophet Joel saying, proclaim a fast, call the assembly. It's a very excited reading. And if the reader reads it with that sense of excitement, because what Joel is talking about is that the exiles from Babylon are returning. And isn't that what happens on Ash Wednesday? But the exiles are returning. And we don't treat the exiles when they come back and say, well, it's about time you got here. No, we look at them and we say, thank you. We welcome you. You have a seat of honor. Think about the story of the prodigal son. We don't read that on Ash Wednesday, but that is very much the same. We put out the fatted calf. We throw a feast for those who have returned. So when you're thinking about those gatherings after Ash Wednesday services, think about a muted sense of celebration because you're excited. People are coming back. In a way, church workers should have that, or they should be smiling as soon as Ash Wednesday begins, because they know that those people who have been far off are a little bit closer that day. And that's a reason for celebrating. And that's why someone like Pope Francis, who has kind of the Ash Wednesday spirit in him, is also so joyous, because he knows that the people who are far off are coming closer again. Another person comments here, I think treating Ash Wednesday as a point of noticing that someone chose to come and listening to their story is important. Maybe tell them why they came. Maybe they don't if we listen. And maybe they will have a very positive outlook on the church as we as representatives of the faith. I think that's the key thing, listening to people. Everyone's got a story. People don't come to Ash Wednesday necessarily because they feel guilty. And even if they do feel guilty, what's the story? What's your story? Maybe you feel guilty because you had a mother who, took you every year to Ash Wednesday services or always had you do Lenten rituals at home, and you're thinking about your mother that day. And yeah, we might cynically say, oh yeah, you came because you felt guilty. But what's their story? And their story is they were thinking about their mother that day, and they feel close to their traditions they grew up with. That's a story. What other stories do people who walk through that door have? And maybe on Ash Wednesday, maybe the gathering afterwards, maybe throughout the season of Lent, we just simply listen to their story. Why'd you come? What compelled you? What excited you about coming to church this day? There's a story, even in the most cynical reason why someone comes. Everyone has a story. And Lent is of 40 days where we should be spending listening to them. And even if we don't at the church, maybe in our families or amongst our extended friends, as those studies show, 60% of a number of generations are fasting on Friday. If only 15% of young adults come to Mass regularly, but 60% are fasting on Fridays each week, there's got to be a story. And in your own family or your own networks that you have people who probably exemplify that. They are fast. They don't go to church maybe regularly, but they're fasting on Friday. Imagine having a conversation about that. And again, just simply listening to their story. And when we listen to that story, we can enter into that, and that is ultimately how good evangelization happens. Listen, accompany, and then ultimately community. For me, if I were to summarize what we can learn, I kind of draw it back to this one particular scripture passage. And so just for a moment, just take a look at this scripture passage. This is from Matthew 11. And this is the invitation of Christ to himself. But when you read this, because Christ's body is ours, because Christ's hands and feet are ours, especially during Lent, think about saying this to everyone who is a little bit farther off, who may not come to church regularly. And if we adopt the spirit of this saying, we can, I think, approach Ash Wednesday and Lent and all year round in a new way. So just think for yourself, and I'll read it, and just imagine yourself saying this to somebody who may be detached, somebody who may be hurt, who is in need of mercy, who is in need of refuge and rest, who is overwhelmed with life's pressures. And we say, as Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves." That invitation of Christ is so beautiful. And it is an invitation that we can follow the Master and say to any of those who come on Ash Wednesday, who come during the season of Lent, in our friends, our families, those who are strangers, and say to them, "Come to me. If you are burdened, come, and you will find rest." And that essentially is what they hope to find in the church. And that is how Ash Wednesday and the season of Lent can be a moment of evangelization. It can be a moment of mercy. It can be the beginning of a new direction for people. Instead of Ash Wednesday being a moment of return, maybe for those people, it will turn into a milestone of their return. So just some food for thought as we approach this season. Think about yourself. How are you approaching the season? And then how will you, within Ash Wednesday, within the season of Lent, make that a special experience for those who come? And then throughout the entire year, how can what we learn from the people on Ash Wednesday inspire us to be more merciful and a more Catholic church? So I want to take this time to thank you. And then just to pause if people have any clarifying questions, other ideas, insights you might have, I'll be certainly happy to take those now. You can unmute your microphone or write it in the text box, whatever you'd like. But I'd certainly love any insights you might have or thoughts about how you might apply this in your own ministry, in your own work. Yes, Lisa. Turn off your microphone if you'd like. Or turn on your microphone, I should say. Or write something in the text box. Well, while we might be waiting for others, I do want to let you know that if you do have any additional questions, I have my email here. You're more than welcome to respond if you have any further questions or insights. If you're looking for more resources on this, happy to help. I know that the Catholic Apostolate Center will have this webinar recorded on their site, and so it's certainly something you can come back to from time and time again. But just want to let you know that that's some possibilities. I also am aware that the Catholic Apostolate Center also has a Lenten resource page on their website. So some of the tools we can use. They have a social media page, they have a Lenten page. So these might be great tools to use in going forward. Well, I'm going to hand this back over to Jay, and if he would like to wrap us up. I'm glad that people learned a lot. We appreciate you, your appreciation of that. And so, Jay, if you'd like to take it away, you're more than welcome to.
Thanks again, Paul, for presenting, and thank you to everyone who tuned in and joined us this evening. As Paul said, we'll have the recording of this webinar uploaded to our YouTube channel within the next week, so please keep an eye out there and on our website, CatholicApostolatecenter.org, for the link. You're welcome to share it with anyone you'd like. As always, all of our content is free. And if you haven't found us yet on social media, please like or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram in the hope that we'll continue to reach more people with the message of the gospel. On behalf of the Catholic Apostolate Center and the Palatines, we wish you and your loved ones a blessed Lent and pray, in the words of St. Vincent Pallotti, that the charity of Christ will urge you on. Good night and God bless.